The English have a kind of interesting problem as I head into the autumn 1814 issue. I don't feel like they have it nailed down, right? Yeah, it felt pretty good until Erie fell. But I'm looking around in the lakes. They kind of feel like they have a disadvantage just in terms of, not so much on Erie, but on Ontario. There's more frigates here, but that could be kind of smoothed out if I could get that frigate in place. But there aren't a lot of things I want to do that take big cards, and I got a lot of big cards. And there's this kind of, geez, I got to rethink what I'm doing and try to figure out, can I maybe get my Quebec troops down or something like that. I don't think I can. I've done too well for them to be within range. I don't have a leader kicking around that I can use for them. There just aren't a lot of good choices here for the Brits to use a big card on. I can't really afford to move Rottenburg, because if I leave the frontier, I'm going to have trouble maintaining supplies. And I obviously can't move Prevost, and his forces are kind of holding Albany. I suspect, the Americans are going to have their reinforcements coming in first. I'm going to destroy that. But for the Americans to do well, Dearborn kind of has to knock Albany out. I got to get those 12 victory points back. And, at 21 there, I've got a pretty big bonus. I think the English are going to win. I think that's not in doubt, but I don't think they're going to get the decisive victory by any guarantee of the situation. And that's what I'm playing for right now, to make sure that I get the decisive victory. And it's hard to assure at this point. Well, as I look at the situation, the American position is improving by the moment. Dearborn spent a 3-point card. He's got quite a force there. Now, the reinforcements, I've moved them to the winter turn. I don't remember. I think they have the option to come in one turn late. It doesn't really matter. They could not possibly get any better. They have this 1 to 7 odds, so that they would immediately be destroyed, essentially, by the rules. So they don't want to advance. The Brits are looking and saying, we don't want to get attacked here. We don't want to lose Albany. That's worth 12 victory points. And we happen to have the Treaty of Ghent sitting in our hand. And there's 7 cards remaining because we played 1. We have no way to get rid of more cards. We probably should have tried to figure out a battle or something, because we had a battle event we could have played. But given the situation, I'm going to play the Treaty of Ghent, take a 7 victory point hit, because 7 puts me up to 14 victory points. It's not the decisive victory that I want, but I don't think I can get it. And I'm beginning to worry that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more puts me under the marginal. That gives me the 12 if Albany falls. More than that, it could actually end up ending up as some sort of close tie or whatever, where the point total is really skewed in favor of the Americans. They could even end up, with it on the blue side, which would be a very, very minor victory. So now the only thing the Americans can do is if they had the Battle of New Orleans, but it's the Brits who have that. What would that have done? It's a winter event that would be played after the end of the game. It must have been held until winter. If the war ends through the play of the Treaty of Ghent, the card cannot be played, and it's just 2 victory points. So that would I was wrong. I thought that could be played after the treaty. Historically, the battle actually happened after the treaty, but it didn't have any effect, which is, I guess, the factor here. If you had that late battle and the treaty hadn't been signed, it could have some effect on the eventual treaty. Anyway, that's where we are. I'm going to recount my points. I'll come back for a wrap. I know this is tiny, And then in terms of I should have just done it all in one, I didn't realize how quickly this was going to end. I thought the English wanted to go for the decisive victory, but I'm just looking and I do not see it as possible. You know, I mean, if they held on to Albany, yeah, but I just don't feel the comfort for that. So I played for this. Maybe I'll do the battle and see how it would have turned out, because the Americans certainly would hit it. Now, if they win at Albany, then they can probably march up through here, gaining some more territories. Or they've got this interesting situation. So Rottenburg didn't want to attack Harrison. That was one of the factors. If Rottenburg attacked Harrison, Harrison could retreat back to join Rensselaer, and then a combined force could march forward, which would be more than Rottenburg could handle. It just, as it stood though, Rensselaer could march up and hit Rottenburg. But the battles don't tend to be these decisive situations. They don't tend to wipe out the enemy. Usually, even if you have, the only ones that end up wiping out the enemy are close fought battles where both sides are taking casualties by them going several rounds on those 6 to 8 rolls. There are possibilities. There was a card the British had that could have increased the casualties a little bit. But for the most part, big battles, you got 2 big armies left afterwards, much like you would in the Civil War. And it makes perfect sense to me. These aren't ancients fighting that should have these calamitous battles that just wipe things out. Nor World War II has the same sort of factor, actually, where, you know, at least on a large scale, you could pocket a bunch of troops and force them to surrender. You've got nothing like that in this. So the battles are fairly indecisive, unless, like at Fort Malden, you're pinned up against a location where you got no way out. All right, let me make the count. I'll do a test run for the battle, see who would have won Albany. Well, somewhere or another, I must have let the victory point track get out of whack. Ends up, the Brits were at 31 after... oh, I forgot the penalty. There were 7 cards. 24. So I was I was 10 points off. I think what happened was the plus 10 marker missed. The plus 10 marker wasn't sufficient. I should have been at something like this and didn't realize that. And yeah, I mean, if you look, they hold the whole valley here. The Americans do hold some of the London area, but clearly the Brits wanted the treaty at this point. They get the decisive victory. Do I want to roll out that battle? Yeah, what the hell. I got lots of video out right now. So I'll come back after I do that just to see, hey, because there is the question, could the Brits have just held on to what they had? And that battle would be the key single indicator. But there's a significant possibility that the Americans could have gained ground. The Brits were not going to gain anything of any importance in this last turn. Well, it turns out the British had an inspired leadership card in hand. They don't get the bonus for the clear terrain anymore, not in this year. I don't know if I gave that to them somewhere else. I don't think so. They weren't attacked up here. So the overall was -1 for size. That cancels out due to quality of troops. The Americans had a better troop. The leadership is equal. We can't use Drummond in this because he's outranked by Prevost. The inspired leadership gave him -2, and I rolled a big old 3, which, you know, would have driven the attacker back with 2 step losses. That's it. You know, I mean, the Americans, then any further attempt to attack would take another card. Chances are they wouldn't get it. That would be their goal for the game, is to take Albany. They had some cards that could give them some additional victory points at the end of the game. That might have been useful. They had an incendiary action, which could give 2 victory points, but that gives up the victory points you're getting for a location, so they could, like, burn Oxford or something. They don't want to burn anything important, because oddly enough, burning a big city actually deprives you of an opportunity to get points. The nice thing is it gets rid of the fort too, I think. Certainly a significant value from the fort. So the Brits made the right move, there's no question. They guaranteed a decisive victory by playing the card. I don't think that there was a lot of value to where the Americans were going to be able to go with that card, though, with the rest of the turn. I don't think at 31 points they could have gotten it below 20 if they couldn't take Albany. Hard to tell. The Brits also had victory point cards in their hands that could have played it out for that. There was something else I wanted to... Oh, yeah. There's a winter turn. But it does not matter. Nothing can happen in the winter that's significant, except play of winter victory point cards. And nobody cashed any into place so that they could do that. So that's what we got. Another wild and woolly game of this. My first one had the Americans cutting the British supply off, cutting around this way, which is really their vulnerable location. You could say, well, couldn't Brown kind of do that? Yeah, it's tough because you got to cut it up here. This is the link between the St. Lawrence and the lakes, where you can transport supply in great quantities. So once you cut, here at Prescott, then making it down becomes possible. And it could have happened, but here's the problem: the Brits still have supply coming down from Lake Huron. You got to win that as well. And in my game, I won the Lake War in Huron, which would have been difficult to do because Barclay could sail up and defeat the American fleet up there if need be. I had all the lakes, actually, so it was much easier to prevent transport here. I didn't have to take Prescott. I could take other spaces, like Kingston, for example, which were worth more, and garrison that. So, yeah, in both cases, though, the person who kind of dominated the supply situation, prevents the other person from getting supply, takes a very powerful position in the game. And it may swing a little too much. I'll get into that in my review. Up this one goes. It's gotten long enough.